Okay, welcome to the channel, everybody. So today we are going to look at Act 6.3.2. Talk about the nodes, talk about the champions I use, talk about the defenders, talk about the boss, Nick Fury. Let's get in there. So right off the bat, I went with a mutant heavy team. The path I chose was the Caltrops and Bloodletting path. So obviously, I wanted a good, solid bleed immune team. Plus, on top of that, you actually do better against Nick Fury, not only because of the class advantage, but also he does have a node that mutants have the biggest advantage on. Colossus, Iceman, and Omega Red were going to be the main champions for getting through the path, the main champions for making sure everything was getting taken care of, and also the main champions for the boss. I also brought in Hyperion for two particular fights. I brought him in for the Darkhawk fight and the mini boss of Red Skull. We'll talk about that more here in just a moment. So let's take a look real quick right off the bat of the path I'm taking here. First off, you've got Deadpool, X-Force, and Captain Marvel Classic. Then we actually get into the link nodes with Darkhawk, followed immediately by Nightcrawler. The nice thing is about this particular path, none of these have any additional Lincoln nodes to them. It is literally just the Caltrops and the Bloodletting. So if you're bringing in Bleed Immune champions, which there are some amazing options out there for Bleed Immune, but I think I went with a pretty strong team here, especially considering the synergies. And then we have Medusa, Heimdall, and then finally MODOK, who is actually the one that is giving everyone the links for the path. He himself does not have any links on him. After MODOK, we do go over to the Red Skull fight. Now that's where things start to get interesting. Now, Red Skull has aggressive armor, which means that he is constantly gaining armor up buffs, but those can be removed anytime you strike him. Now, obviously, that is a problem in itself because of the fact that Red Skull has probably one of the best shieldings that there is outside of maybe Darkhawk, which is, again, another one of those fights that was a little trickier compared to the rest of the path. He also has Vitality Rush. Now, this one only applies really if you have to go into the fight a second time. What it does is it gives a power up to whichever champion goes in, starts the fight with the bigger percentage of health. Obviously, if you go in the first time and you're fully healed up, you're both 100%, neither one of you are going to get it. So do make sure you take in a fully healthy champion the first fight, and then that doesn't apply. If you should have to go in a second time, though, make sure you heal up to the percentage that your percentage is higher than his. You'll get the buff, and that'll give you a little extra boost on being able to finish him off and taking him down. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is his specials are unblockable. Finally, we go over to the Nick Fury fight. Now, he has a few extra things on him. Obviously, he has a health boost and an attack boost. The next one that is there is the Shank. That increases his chance to inflict a bleed debuff. Keep that in mind. He already has so many chances to do it, so that having extra chances is something to be even more reason to be watching and making sure that you're either bringing in bleed immune or bleed beneficial champions like Omega Red. After the Shank, then we have the Tactical Advantage. Now this is the other side of this, is that if the champion that you're using is bleed immune, Nick Fury, if he tries to apply a bleed debuff on you and it does not apply because of the immunity, then he has a 75% chance to gain a tactical charge. And of course, every time he hits 15 of those tactical charges, he becomes unblockable. But if you are using a mutant champion, not only do you have class advantage, but that 75% chance reduces down to a 50% chance. This is definitely a big advantage to look at because of the fact that, like I said, bringing in Colossus, who ends up being the one that I figured would be the one to take him down, but is definitely the one that I finish him off with. the class advantage, the heavy hits, and on top of that, being able to lessen the chances of him gaining tactical charges, all made it even more important. The other two nodes he has on him are debuff immunity as well as increased bleed, and then finally he has empowered immunity. Whenever Fury would get a debuff on him, since he is immune, he instead gains a 33% bar of his power. So that is another thing to take in consideration. Obviously, Iceman's one of the ones that we have to watch out for because he's going to apply multiple debuffs, which will just ramp up Fury even more. But that's one of those things to keep in mind. If you're going to use Iceman, he is still that bleed immune. He does still have the mutant advantage. So there is still potential there, but something to keep in mind. That's another reason for Colossus being my star. Let's get into the first fight right off the bat. Now, this one, we do not have any link nodes on Deadpool X-Force, so we just went ahead and brought in Omega Red because, of course, we still have the chance that Deadpool will bleed us, and that makes it a little bit easier to get our spores on. That makes it a lot easier for us to health steal off of him and obviously bleed him dry, so we can disadvantage him itself. The other nice thing about it is too, with the Hyperion and Colossus synergies on there, Omega Red is even more potent, so I figured he'd be a great one for this path. Even though he isn't bleed immune, he does benefit so much so from being bled that more often than not he can keep himself alive while taking down the opponent and doing very severe damage to them. Now, normally I would be going for the SP2 because that actually gives us our death field, and that is ideally what we want to get activated there, but I let him push me over to the special 3, so I went ahead and stole a little bit of life off of him, brought us back up. He went ahead and activated my death field for himself, and that was the end. All she wrote there, folks. Then we went into the Captain Marvel Classic fight. This is, again, another fight that you don't have to worry about any link nodes on. It is just a straightforward fight. Brought Iceman in here just to kind of play around, basically. We could have brought in Hyperion or Omega Red easily enough, but I figured Iceman with the buff and with the Cold Snap would be a little easier and quicker to bring her down. That didn't necessarily work as well as I want. It was a little bit longer of a fight than I intended it to be, but we still were able to get her down all the way. Part of it, too, is I wanted to make sure and do something a little bit different for this particular sets of fights. I wanted to focus a little bit more on using 5-star champions instead of constantly using my top 6 stars. I've been trying to do that a little more so later on as we're getting into the Thronebreaker push, because I want to show people that even if you don't necessarily have the best 6 stars in the game, good 5 stars, especially if you have them ranked up and are making sure that you have the right counters, can still get you through these paths. Now you'll see here, took quite a bit of a beating there, kind of played around a little bit too much with her. She gets us up to the SP1, and I'm able to use a little bit of range here, and there you go. That should be all she wrote on that one. Dark Heart fight. Now, this is the first one that we have to go into, that we have to deal with the Caltrops and the Bloodletting, which is a major disadvantage for Hyperion because obviously he's not bleed immune. But the Dark Hawk fight, I was a little concerned about taking in champions that were at a class disadvantage, so I wasn't quite certain that I could handle this 100% with Colossus. So I decided to go ahead and try Hyperion early on, knowing very well that he was primarily for the Red Skull fight. But again, I had to give it a try. Let myself build up way too many bleeds long before I could do anywhere near the damage I needed to do to Darkhawk to be able to make it through that one. So we turned around and brought Colossus in anyways. Now, you'll see here, this goes a lot better. A little bit of a, grind of a fight here because of the class disadvantage, but obviously without having to worry about the bloodletting and the caltrips, we can fight the fight out normally and just walk through him. Obviously, if we can get the SP1s and the SP2s off, we can get through that shield, especially with the SP2. And if we can get the SP1s, we can hopefully get a stun on him. Didn't really take as much damage as I was concerned about for this one. So Hyperion ended up not being as valuable for this particular fight. But at the same time, he still is part of that synergy that helps give a bit better crit rating to everybody, as well as giving better advantage on the death field and duration for Omega Red. Next, we went into the Nightcrawler fight here. Now, the Nightcrawler fight, obviously, the thing about it is that you have to be careful about punching into a smoke. Ideally, the best way to fight Nightcrawler is to get him to switch to his swashbuckler phase. It's a lot easier to go through him at that point. But I honestly, I never got him over there. So a little bit more of a tedious grind here, but we did get it built up to the special 3. Should have went for the special 2 there and really got into him. But with the special 3, we were able to knock down quite a bit. That gave us an opportunity to build up our relic there. So we're going to bring Storm in here and get him stunned. That'll get me a chance to really beat on him a few more times to bring down a little bit more. He's obviously getting more hits on us than we're getting on him, but it's still not as bad as it could be. I do end up finishing this fight with Colossus. And you can see there, we went ahead and got up to that SP2, like I said we should have from the very get-go, and ended up finishing him. Now, I made a mistake here of coming in wounded against Medusa there. Obviously, that's a huge mistake. She's got too good of an auto block, and she can easily eat you alive even if you get a good rhythm going on, because she can just turn around and interrupt everything you're doing. So we went ahead and made the mistake of trying to finish her off with Iceman while he was not fully healthy. Now, obviously, he has that cold snap advantage, so that does give him, some direct damage without having to worry about it. Turned around and brought in Omega Red. Honestly, we could have saved all of this and went through this a lot quicker if we would have just turned around and revived up healed up Colossus before we went in here to start with whatsoever. But we do end up getting most of her taken care of, and I do believe I finished her off with Omega Red here. It's going to be a very close fight. Yep, able to finish her off. And then we went into the Heimdall fight. Now, obviously, again, I talked about not using the potions and building up. Now, Omega Red has a little bit of a different stance on this because, of course, he can steal some life off of the opponent. So, sometimes he can fight back against some of that. We do also have the guaranteed death field active because of the bleed durations off of the caltrips, because I'm going to trigger way too many bleeds. I will be honest about that. Then we turned around and built Heimdall up to a special 3, which was obviously a mistake because that's going to be something that we have no choice but to take to the face, especially while we're already bleeding. That was a little bit of a miscalculated move there, and yet still we're getting some lifesteal there to keep us sustained. like I said, you can do quite a bit to make it through with Omega Red, and we could have probably done this in a way that not only did we make it through it, but we came out way healthier than we went in. We did actually finish it off and didn't have to worry about necessarily coming in healthier. But, oh, that's right. I apologize. I took that one and then I had to revive, so I let him go ahead and finish it off anyways. This gave me an opportunity to revive up the entire team. Then we went ahead and brought Colossus in for MODOK. Again, another fight that we don't have to worry about nodes on. The only thing we do have to worry about is obviously MODOK is a pain in the butt. You got to watch it. He can easily jump right back into that block shield, and it's hard to punch through that. Plus, on top of that, he does have the incinerate damage, which obviously we don't have to worry about with Colossus because he is incinerate immune. Now, getting built up to the special 2 there is going to do quite a bit because that's going to actually finally be something that's going to punch through that damage. And then again, we got the relic built back up. Let Storm come in, get him stunned, and that's all she wrote. Now on to the Red Skull fight. Like I said, we brought in Hyperion for this. This is not going to go according to plan. I needed to be more so focused on getting the parries off or making sure that I was timing my attacks better. Either that or just allowing myself to build directly to the SP3 and going directly at him. But the problem is that you have to get those shields down, or even the SP3 doesn't do nearly anything, to be truthful with you, as you can see there. Now, one of the great things that you can do to time this is his SP1. As you can see back to back here, if you can time that SP1, that just as he does that downward punch, you run in there and start doing your attacks. That gives you that opening so that you can guarantee that you get a combo off without triggering his shielding and without degenerating your power gain there. Obviously, Hyperion has enough power gain to counteract the degeneration of power, but at the same time, it is one of those things that letting him consistently go like this and not getting the shielding down right off the bat, we took way more than we should have off this first fight. And he was able to catch me on a few occasions that were more than easily my fault by being a little too close in there and not timing my intercept to get in there for that last punch right. Trying to move in too fast and trying to get too aggressive because I had gotten weak. Now, we did go back in with Hyperion. We healed back up, made sure we were going in healthy, and went back to the actual plan. Again, I did mess up right off the bat a little bit here by punching into that shield a few times, but after we found those openings so we could get him triggered up to those SP1s, I let him hit me with one. So, again, guys, I tell you, this the plan is always solid, and you guys can definitely make it through this. Just don't allow yourself to get flustered. It's something that I've done on more than a few occasions where I knew what the plan was. I went in, slipped up once or twice, and then got a little flustered and instead took the punches to the face. The other nice thing with Hyperion here is he does have that SP1 that's easy to build up to. So if you can get that opening, you can build up some incinerate charges on Red Skull here and actually take some of that, allow him to still be taking damage even when you're not getting those shields off of him. Again, like I said, if you can catch that opening right at the tail end of that SP1, you can easily get a 5-hit combo off every time without triggering his shielding, and that will give you the chance to get some of those armor up buffs off and reset that timer. got him right down to the end and just couldn't finish him off. So we again revived up, came in. We were obviously at higher health than him, which gives us that advantage that we talked about earlier. And it was easy enough to go ahead and finish him off at the end. Now we have one fight left, and that is the Nick Fury fight. Now, obviously, the biggest thing about the Nick Fury fight, outside of the fact of watching out for the bleeds and making sure that you do have the bleed immune champion, even though you're going to be triggering up some of those tactical charges easier, and also on top of that, giving him a little more power gain with having a bleed immune champion, it is still not nearly as much to worry about as getting that LMD down. That first part of getting the first life off of him, because of course this is almost 2 fights in one. The other thing to keep in mind when you're fighting Nick Fury, if you can push him to the special 2 as opposed to the special 1. As you can see here, on more than one occasion did I turn around and take that SP1 directly to the face, because he had 15 tactical charges. It's really hard to evade every move of that first part of the SP1. We did get the relic in there, so we were able to get him stunned, brought him up to the SP2 off of our SP2. And you can see here, most of the time, the SP2 of his is easier to evade. If you can get back for that first part, so that while he's going through that whole part before he does the gunshot, you can evade the whole thing if you just time the gunshot right. Which I obviously didn't do there, but you can see the basic concept. We're going to go ahead and bring in Iceman next. Now, obviously, like I said, we have to worry about the fact that Iceman is going to apply multiple buffs to him, or multiple debuffs to him, and those are automatically going to trigger his, it's automatically going to trigger his power gain. So we have to watch out for that, him getting too much power too quickly. But we were able to get through the LMD there, and now we're on to the true fight here. What I was trying to do here was avoid as much of that fight as possible, let the poison take down as much off of him as we could, so that he got down to that 30% health, and instead of having to take an entire 100% off, we could finish it, just finish him from a 30% point. Obviously, I couldn't keep him off of me long enough to do that, so we turned around and brought Omega Red in. Now, Omega Red, again, he is extremely great for a lot of these type of fights, especially when he's going to be bled, because it's really easy when he's bleeding and has that Death Force active to get a lot of those Death Spores onto Fury, but it just wasn't enough in itself, so we went back, or we still had Hyperion left, so I thought we'd try him. Went for the SP1 so that we could get some incinerates off here, and left him, which was actually a bad move, because again, we don't want to be putting debuffs on him because he's debuff immune. So instead tried the SP2, which again was a bad move. So that left us with nobody left but Deadpool. So now, Nick Fury, in his real Nick Fury form, has an amazing amount of power boost on him. So building him up to an SP3, especially with a non-leveled up champion, was a horrible idea. And that's all she wrote for that one, folks. So as I said, we finally went back to the original plan, revived Colossus, and went in and finished the fight. Well, there you go, guys. We definitely could have done it in less revives. We could have done it with less potions. We should have stuck to the plan a little more. But at the same time, you can still see we were able to get through it, and we moved on to 6.3.3, and we're able to continue on to Thronebreaker. I'll have that video out here tomorrow, and then we will be visiting 6.3.4 next week, And continuing on, we have quite a ways left to go in the Thronebreaker series here, and we are pushing forward. So make sure that you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel so you can join us for the next one, and I will see you there. Peace out.